But I want to thank you for inviting me all the way out here. I think it's my privilege to be here. And I can see you've got a great club. You have amazing turnout tonight. Can we take the lights down also? This will be easier to see. I live in Maryland, Bethesda, Maryland, so I can ride my bicycle to the monuments and stuff. And yep, I like it. So in my club, I'm in two clubs. I'm in a state club and I'm in a county club, and I'm the webmaster for both of them. We have a forum that's kind of like a email listserv that we have 600 people on, and anyone can send a message to everyone, and it's kind of fun. So I run that. So that's by way of introduction of me. But tonight we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about my book, but only as an example of some things that you might find in observation hives and things that, and as they said, how you can take your own pictures, because I'm a huge fan of taking pictures. We're going to talk about things that you can see in an observation hive. And it's going to be things that, I'm going to show you some things that you might see in your hive, but there'll be things that you'll be able to see them better, and some things that you're never going to be able to see in your own field hives. You'll get in your hives and, well, you'll tell me at the end if you've seen these things before. I'm going to give you explain some challenges for taking pictures of bees and give you tips on how to overcome them. And this would apply even if you have your cell phone and you want to take pictures of some bees, mostly in an observation hive if you go visit. Does anyone have an observation hive here? One, two. Nice. The club has one? Okay, great. And then I'm going to talk about extreme photography. And this is what I mean by extreme photography. This is amazing stuff. This is not something that you can get just by looking in a microscope and taking a picture. And I'm going to give you the secrets on how you can do this. You won't be able to do it without special equipment, but it's pretty fascinating, and you'll see these pictures around, and then you'll maybe have a better appreciation for what it takes to get them. So my beginning was, I'm a documentary producer, and I was doing a documentary on bee die-offs, and I got to speak with Jeff Pettis over there at USDA, who did amazing research, and that's me directing, and this is my camera person who insisted he did not need a veil, and as soon as Jeff lifted the lid of the box, he was stung in the face, so now he's wearing his fleece. So like you guys, I got into bees, and one of the best things about it is the other people you meet in the club. So you become a family, and one person I met is Frank Linton, and we really hit it off. We had kind of the same kind of scientific background and love of bees and observation hives. So he invited me to write a book with him. We just didn't know what it was going to be exactly. So there are a lot of bee books out there, as you know, and so we wanted to figure out something that would be new and different, if that's possible, because of all the things. So we said, well, what do we know? Well, we're both docents for observation hives, and I have an observation hive that every year a couple classes of school children, 25 at a time, come to my house, and they look into my hive, and I'm standing there and I'm trying to explain to them what they're seeing. And sometimes, I'm sure all of you have this experience, you're trying to show either a new beekeeper or explain something to a non-beekeeper what they're seeing. So I'm standing trying to tell these kids, look for some eggs down in the bottom of this back of the cells. Well, what's an egg look like? Well, it looks like a tiny grain of rice. Anyone else have that same conversation? Okay. But then we're like, well, if we just had a book that would be like a tour through the observation hive, we're not telling people anything new, but just the way we're organizing it, and hopefully the fantastic pictures we're presenting would make it an easy tool for people. So instead of saying, look for the eggs, we show them the picture of the egg that's right in the book and easy to access, and we also make it into kind of an interactive thing. So everything starts with find. So if you have this book by yourself, it's kind of a self-guided tour. You're your own docent, and tells you to find eggs. And then the other thing we tried to do that was unique is the graphics. So, I mean, Dewey Caron's book is amazing, but if you don't know what you're looking for, sometimes it's a little hard because you have to look in the text to see what figure 3 means or where it is. And I just I wanted this to be a visual book that anyone could access. So that's why we did the graphics like that. So now when we go there, this is just a quick flip through the book, and then I'm going to go on to the next section. But I'm going to talk to you about some of these pictures that are in the book and what it takes to make them and how you can do it and why you should do it. So what can you see if you had an observation hive? And so it's new views of an observation hive, but what this section really is why you need one. I guarantee you that you want one. Your club has one, but that's not the same as being in your house. You want one that you have constant access to, and you can see the changes that are going on, even in different parts of the same day. So I'm going to give you a list of 11 reasons why you want them. The first one is winter. I know you don't have snow here, but you have a period where you can't get into your hives. So are you beekeeper at that time? Mm-hmm. They're out there doing their own thing, and you're inside. But if you have an observation hive, this is what you get to see all year round. You can look at your bees, and you can study them individually and see what they're doing. There's all kinds of fun things you can do with them. So that's number 2, which is it's 2 layers thick. I can't see into the cells very well, and I can't blow them because there's a pane of glass there. Where's the nest? Where are they raising their babies? You can draw your finger along the glass, and you can instantly feel the temperature gradient. If you use a thermal camera, you can see exactly where it is too. Even through the glass, it heats it up. So this is number 3. Can anyone guess even what number 3 is, even though you're looking at 2 pictures of number 3? A reason why you might want to have your observation hive? What do you get to see here? No, there's no queen. Well, I guess it is. I don't know. Maybe. That wasn't it. Any other guesses? Sorry? No, I don't see any hatching. I'll just tell you. The bottoms of the bees. You see bees crawling all the time, but when do you get to sit, unless you have a dead bee, and watch what they're doing and look for wax coming out and just to see where all their legs attach. You know where they attach. You've seen pictures of it, but to watch them go, it's also very funny because bees can hold on to a rough surface or they can hold on to a smooth surface. But the smooth surface is not quite as efficient, so it'll be stuck there, and then if you watch long enough, it'll slowly start to sink down the side of the glass, and then it has to crawl up again to get to where it was. So the way it can stick to the glass is the aurelium, and does anyone know how it decides I'm going to land on something or crawl on something that's smooth versus rough. Should I use my claws or should I use my sticky pads? I didn't know this either until I looked it up. But here's a graphic by Ian Stell, who's an amazing bee biologist. So what happens is they have a tendon that starts to pull down the claws. And if the claws hit something solid that's smooth, then they can't grip in, and the claws just automatically start sliding apart. It's not a decision that the bee's making, it's just a mechanical operation. And when they slide far enough, that same tendon pulls down their sticky pad, and then they're sticking there. So they're just, whatever the surface is, it's kind of like automatic. Anyway, you get to watch that if you have an observation hive. Number 4 is yes. So if you have an observation hive, this is a suggestion. Most observation hives, the entranceway or what goes to the outside is usually opaque. It's a wood or it's a piece of plumbing piping or whatever. Don't do it. I built this myself for other reasons, but I put a clear tube there because if you're just watching the observation hive, it's more like an ant farm, right? They're just moving around. But if you see bees coming and going and what they're bringing in, then you get a better idea of what you've got there. And also put the entrance on the outside of the house in a place where you can see it from the inside of the house. So you can see bees coming and going. Here's bringing some pollen back. Now I can watch it go in through the tube. But here's what you can't see in your field hives, usually, is what happens when the bee gets back on the frames. So I made this video and I put a little time code in the right-hand corner. So I've been watching this bee for 30 seconds already. It came back with the pollen and it's just got its head in a cell. And I'm like filming. My arms are getting tired. I'm waiting for it to deposit because somehow I don't see very often them kick the pollen off of their legs and put it in the cell, so I'm waiting. But it never goes in there. It doesn't deposit there. Anyone want to gather why? Why didn't it? I think it wasn't an empty cell, it was a cell with nectar or honey, and it was hungry from coming back, so it was eating for 30 seconds. I don't know that. I'll also give a caveat too. These are all anecdotal observations of mine. I'm not a scientist, so I can only tell you what I've observed. This is that bee, I followed it. It puts its head in a cell. No, that's not the right one. It's looking for one to deposit its, and why don't I see it? Interesting. I think I went too far. Sorry. I don't know why it's not playing. Anyway, this bee looks in a cell, looks in another cell, goes on, not right, looks in another cell, goes on, looks in another cell, not right, looks in another cell. Okay, it decided that's the cell. So you guys, I asked Bonnie, she said she's seen bees kick off pollen, but even in the observation hive, I find it really hard to find it. What's the next thing the bee is going to do? Is it going to pound it in with its head? I mean, that's the next thing that happens to the pollen, but I didn't know. So in the observation hive, I watched it, and that bee shot away. As soon as it got the pollen pellets off its leg, it was gone. But luckily, this other bee, a house bee, came by, found it. here's our time since I started watching the bees to see where the pollen went. So it's packing the pollen. So if I hadn't seen what had happened, I might not know what that bee's doing. It's just putting its head in, putting its head in, putting its head in. But I couldn't believe how long it took this bee. So look at the time, just jumped to 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, still packing that pollen in there. And then it's gonna pull its head out, and I think, okay, finally it's done. Then it thinks again, and it goes back and it sticks its head back in again. Oh, well, maybe I better do it a little bit more. Right, so you're, oh, okay, they're breaking up the pellet, so they're using their mandibles to chew it up. But then don't they pack it in afterwards? I mean, it's, because it's, yes, yeah, yeah, nice. Number 5, you've seen this before, the waggle dance, but oh my gosh, I can sit in front of my hive all day and watch this and try to figure out, at least even what direction they're going. But also there's other behaviors that you can see in there. This is the shake signal. So it grabs the abdomen and it shakes its own abdomen up and down. And that means, stop sleeping, get out there, do some work. Queens are amazing. You get to, in your own observation hive, you're going to get to see the queen lay so many eggs. And she does exactly what it says in the textbook. She grabs the cell, she measures the size of the cell to make sure what it is, and then she curls her abdomen like crazy around. I don't even know how she bends like that, and then sticks it down. I don't know. When you see it yourself live, it just means more. Get to watch her retinue. You get to watch some cell making, but also the undertaker bees, which to me was just really fascinating. So the house bees haven't been outside, and they may not know even where the entrance is, which is a little bit hidden. So whenever a new house bee is clearing out, they go all over. They're running really fast, carrying the dead whatever it is, looking for the exit, but they haven't really been to the exit many times or don't know or whatever, but it's just crazy. They'll take minutes and minutes. I'll just be following them around as they carry their dead things. So here's another tip. If you have an observation hive or want to make an observation hive, most of them have the feeder just integral with the observation hive. So is a bee feeding in there? You don't know because it's just right on top of the piece of wood or whatever. So what I did is I made this stand that's clear. Where the arrows are holes. That's where the bees come, leave the hive. They go into the to the clear box, and then they go up. That's just a standard kind of upside down feeder. And the other thing that another self-research project that's just fun is look at my sugar water. Why would I do that? It's got food coloring in it. And that it's coming. That's so I can see where they put it. So each time I refill it, I put it in a different color. And I can see if they're bringing in new nectar, because it won't be colored, or if they're moving my nectar, my sugar water, into the cell and where they're putting it. Now, one thing I expected to see is I always hear about bees as they're dehydrating the nectar, they're moving it around from cell to cell. So I expected to see like a gray mixed up coloring, but it's a little bit hard to see here, but like this is all orange and that's all green and that's kind of orange also. So I don't know the answer, but I ask everybody, why are the colors separated? Does anyone have a guess? So at one of my talks, somebody said that they thought that maybe I wasn't very precise with mixing my sugar water, and that the bees don't like to mix up their concentrations. So I don't know, maybe that's true. But there's another thing oh, by the way, what's happened here is they built some wax comb on the glass. So that was wonderful because I got to see into it. And sometimes they put eggs in there, and you get to watch that develop too. So this cell is just from the other picture, but there's something going on that I didn't understand. I always thought that the cells are built at an angle, right? So why are they built at an angle? I was told that it's to help keep the nectar in the back. Well, Randy Oliver corrected me and he's right, and here's the proof of it. If gravity were holding it in, then the nectar would have formed in the bottom of the cell like that. But it didn't. It's like that. So it's a wall. And so it's capillary action that's actually holding it in. Something new. Correction for me. But
It doesn't tell you why. That doesn't explain why it's angled. It just says that it being angled doesn't why.
well, gravity wasn't holding it down, so the tilt wasn't helping it. See this? If it was gravity, it would be laying flat in the cell. But
it doesn't answer the question as to why cells.
you're right, it doesn't. But I'm gonna guess it might have something to do with pollen pellets, which could roll out, or I don't know. I think it does help a little bit, but argue with Randy about that. So another bonus of doing this experiment with the colored sugar water. Anybody see what's going on in this picture? St. Patrick's Day bees. You can see the food coloring right through. On this screen, it's kind of washed out from the lights, but it's quite bright green. So you have to be able to take your observation hive outdoors because you can't open it indoors because then you're releasing the bees. So this is my observation hive outside. And while I have it out, I do another interesting, cruel experiment, which is I mark some workers. So why would I mark a worker in a non-queen year color, by the way? So the reason because I do that, is so I can follow the individuals in the hive. It's very easy to lose a bee. You're trying to follow it. What's it doing now? What's it doing next? Like that one I had marked, where is it? Is that it coming out right there? No. No. Not that one. So where did it go? And the answer is, it came out over here, which I wasn't even looking over here later. And then I can follow it. So what did it do next? It's checking out these cells. So again, you can just sit there for a long time and watch individual behaviors. And to me, a bee lover, I find that fascinating. But those are things that maybe you would be able to see inside your hive. So now I want to show you something that you wouldn't be able to see inside your hive. A swarm, what's the swarm doing? If you open up your hive, you would have changed whatever the bees are doing, but these bees are getting ready to swarm, and it's just this chaotic mix of their warming up their wings and getting their sisters ready to fly. This is a close-up view of that same thing, and I'm going to show you this same scene 3 or 4 times, but each time I'm going to point something else out to you that you might have missed. So this is that same scene. Bees are going around. Okay, so now I'm going to put a little circle there to help you see if you can see what I have circled. It's a drone. It's a drone, and the bees are just the workers are just running over it and crashing into it, and they're just standing there. They don't care. Now I know that I know that drones do go with some swarms. Maybe these weren't going to go with it, but I don't know what they were going to do. Here's another circle. It's a worker under there. So let's figure out what's this worker's up to. She's had enough. She just crawled into that cell, and she's just going to stay there. And guess what? There's more everywhere that are just not going to participate, and they're getting out of the way. So why do we think they would do that? I don't know, but I have a guess. Anybody? Maybe. I don't think so, but because it's kind of right in a brood nest there, a lot of capped brood. Huh? That's my guess. Young bees. I think that, they're so young, they aren't even thinking about flying and wouldn't be a good flyer, so they're just trying to duck out of the way. So I just wanted to remind you, because of what I'm going to show you next, that here's the clear observation area to see if bees are feeding or not. But here's what happened during the swarm. Why? There's no exit there. There's never been an exit there. There's no airflow coming through. It's sealed, and it's got the jar on top, so it's just a couple holes coming from the main. But the bees are frantic, running around. They got to get out, or they're getting ready to get out, and maybe that's an exit. I don't know. So sad in a way. No one's eating. No. So I took the sugar off. They're just desperate to get out. That's number 8 hardware cloth. And someone was saying, don't use number 8 when you're doing the mite. If you make your own mite shake, because you'll decapitate a lot of bees, their heads can go through, and I guess that's right. Anyway, I just found that fascinating too. Just they had to get out. Remember the tube that goes out? It's completely, you think you've got traffic here. You can see in the background they are getting out. And then outside, they started gathering around the exit, which was nice for me because I got a ladder and got them back. By the end, it was a big pile there. Oh, the other thing that I saw is, so everyone knows like about half the bees leave, right? In a swarm. But what you probably knew, but I didn't, is that basically they all leave, and then half of them decide to come back. So after that swarm, at least anecdotally, my experience, that hive was nearly empty. Everyone decided to leave. Okay, I want to encourage you to all take photos, and there's a million reasons why. It's great for your history. You go back, you say, well, what was, first of all, your knowledge level is going to keep growing. And when you go back and look at your old pictures, you're like, oh my gosh, no wonder that was like that. Or how did I miss that? Or wow, that frame was really sick. I thought it was perfect. So in my observation hive, and you've got an observation hive, so you might want to use some of these tips. Light's really, really important. You need to get down into the cell, and it's really a hard thing to light. So my solution was to use something from IKEA, which is very flat LED. It plugs in, and it allows me to put it really close, even when right next to my camera. So it's all very compact, and it's aimable, and I liked it. So the problem with the glass is glare. So just a real quick, easy tip: when you're doing it, you're always going to have glare. But depending on how you frame it, and if you frame something off center, then maybe the interesting thing doesn't have the glare. So you would just crop it down to that. But also sometimes glare and reflections can be an artistic thing. So here's an example of me, the beekeeper, looking at my bees. But try to look what's going on a little bit deeper. My face is reflected, but you see down here the bees. But how is that selective like that? Why would my face reflect but not down here? And so all that is nice and clear. And the reason is I'm wearing a black shirt. So that is a tip to wear black clothes if you're photographing near glass, because your reflection is going to be in your photo otherwise. And if you look right here, you can see that's the edge, that's my arm. And then up here is windows and things in the background. So obviously my body is only as big as it is, so the black could only cover so much. So tip for that is use some kind of blanket to get all the other light out that you don't want. But also sometimes the solution is to use more light. So I've got this tiny little, also IKEA, I need to get a commission, little desk lamp that I can shine on the hive. And here's the example. This is the shot of my hive, and it's reflecting so much that you just see my kitchen. You don't even see that there's bees behind there, and the camera has focused at the far point. So I'm going to play what happens when I click on that little desk lamp that I showed you. Boom. By flooding it with more light, you're overcoming that glare. In the book, I wanted to show something that I see a lot, and I also find really fascinating, which is the fanning inside the hive. My bees fan so much. I've a screen bottom board on my observation hive, and you can put your hand under there and feel the flow and feel the heat, and it's really cool. But I wanted to use photography to show that. So the first time I tried to take it, I ended up, the shutter speed was fast, and I got the wings just frozen there, and that doesn't really convey to the viewer what they're, that there's motion there. So does everyone know shutter speed? Is that, yeah. So slow the shutter speed down, but then I slowed it down too much, and now the wings become invisible, so that's not what I wanted either. So there's a Goldilocks shutter speed. Depth of field's another thing that you can think about when you're taking your pictures of bees. So I want to explain depth of field because it's important to know in the next section so you can appreciate some of the extreme photography. So in this picture, this is in focus, but obviously the background is out of focus. And that is basically the easiest definition of depth of field. So something's in focus, but something further or closer can't be in focus with that same lens. So now the background gets in focus, and the foreground's not. So it can be artistic. One way I used it was I purposely had the foreground autofocus, and in the background I've got an emerging adult, and so I just used, for the book, I used the foreground to put my description of what's going on. So this is an amazing picture that I love. It's by David Davies, but I'm using it to show you the problem with macro photography. The closer you get, the more lens that you have, the shallower your depth of field. So you can see here, just that part is in focus. It's a beautiful picture, but maybe I wanted to see the tips of the antenna and the eyes, or maybe all that and the wings. So that's the extreme photography section. As I mentioned, what I'm going to show you is not possible with just a microscope and a camera. It's a lot more. And I was really lucky enough to work with Sam Droege. Does anyone know Sam? If he hasn't been a speaker here, you'd be happy to get him. He's really a native bee guy, and he's an amazing photographer, and I'm explaining his setup to you, but this is the kind of stuff that he gets, these amazing close-ups of all these native bees. So there's kind of like the native bee people and the honeybee people, and he's the native bee people, but he was kind enough to let me come in, and I brought a few of my bees, and I'll just explain to you his setup there, which is really special. This is a commercial grade SLR camera, and then he's put a microscope lens barrel mounted to the front of it. So some people will put their camera on top of the microscope, but he put the microscope in front of his camera, and it gives him a lot more flexibility. And then there's my bee out in front. So again, remember the depth of field. If one thing's in focus, the other thing is not in focus. So question for you, when he takes this picture right here, how much of the bee is going to be in focus? What parts of the bee will be in focus with this? He's got this microscope lens and just the butt. One. Anybody else? Say again. Belly. Oh, the feet. Okay. One hair. So on that kind of setup that he has, if you move the camera incrementally, you can change what's in focus. So if he moves the camera a hair's width, that hair goes out of focus and the next one comes into focus. And if you move it another hair's width, both of those go out of focus and the third one's in focus. So what he's going to have is a computer. So let me explain. He's going to take all these pictures, 200 in a row, and he's got a computer program that can then take whatever's in focus in the first picture and save it. Whatever's in focus in the second picture, put it in the right place and save it. 200 times or more of what's in there. So you can't do it manually. So what he's added here is this servo unit. It's kind of like a conveyor belt that can move the camera imperceptibly forward. And he's got the computer back here that controls that. So what happens is the computer says, move forward, then it tells the camera, take a picture. Then it says, move forward again, take another picture, and it keeps going forward. So what I did with this, so some of those pictures you saw of his native bees were taken like that. But what I did just for you guys that he didn't have is I took all 200 of those pictures and I made a movie out of it so I could see what it looked like as the camera was zooming across the bee, this far. And then I'll show you at the end of this little movie what the computer did with those pictures. So here's the one hair. Now we're coming across the bee. That's how you got that picture. It's a composite of all those other pictures. And look at the detail. It's just because it's the microscope picture and because each of those little areas is in focus, it puts it together in an amazing way. Any guesses what this is? I always make you guess. Stinger. So I'm going to play this video that I made, but check out the barbs. I didn't, look how like 1/2 of a barb comes into focus at a time. And for me, this is so beautiful, this picture that it puts together. And again, something I learned just from this, I always had the image in my head of these barbs being like a Christmas tree, they're in your skin, you got to get it out. But to me, that barely looks like anything. But that does the trick. So sorry. So just I took that picture, and that's how it ended up in our book. Here's just another example. This is not with the microscope lens. This is just the macro lens. So bigger areas at a time are in focus. And I put those red circles to show you what was in focus each time. And then that's the result, which in itself is pretty crazy and interesting. But then when you start to zoom in, look at the Nasonov gland, look at the, just the detail. And then now look at the Nasonov gland. I mean, wow. And then guess what? You can keep going closer and closer because there's so many precise pictures that were put together with what's in focus. This, should I make a guess again? This is the venom sac with the stinger attached. There's the movie of all the different individual photos. That's put together. Closer. Look at the hairs over there. I wish we had turned these lights off a little more because it's really washed out. Yeah. It's worth it. Anyway, so I'm going to just... I mean, that's art. The stinger to me just looks like amber. So, what time is it? Am I long? So I wanted to show you just a little of the preparation work that Sam had to do. So I told you I took my bees to him. Well, he told me just to kill them and then bring them in. So to kill them, because they have to be dead, right? Because you got all these pictures, the bee cannot move at all. So he said, just put it in some soapy water. But it seemed to me like there's got to be a better way to kill a bee that doesn't mat their hair down, and I really didn't want the tongue to flop out, and so I took them lots of live bees, and I took some ice. Thought maybe we'd freeze them to death, and I wanted to maybe put some in the microwave and whatever. So he was not into that. He had his method. So when he put them into the microwave, he put them in for 30 seconds instead of 3 seconds. So you know what came out. But what he does, he does kill them with soap. He rinses them off, pats them dry, and then blows them dry. And that's how he gets them and mounts them on the left and kind of removes any big debris, maybe with that pin. So just as kind of a review of what we talked about, so you can ask some questions, since I didn't stop anywhere. We talked a little bit about the genesis of the book, different stuff that you saw in the hive, some tips, and the extreme photography. And while you've got the lights off, we can go ahead and ask questions, but maybe I can put some. Was that up there when the lights were off? Does anyone have any questions or comments, or did I say something wrong? Or yeah. How large is my observation hive? So my observation hive is only 4 medium frames. And I ended up with, let me pull it up. So I went through my house and I was just trying to find some place that I could put it. Any observation hive, I guess that's just half of it. And most observation hives like hang on the wall like we saw, but I didn't have any vertical place. And the back of my house is like no operable windows. It's just like lots of glass. So the one place I found I could put it was on top of the desk in my kitchen. And I had that, so you have to have an outside wall nearby. So this is an outside wall, that's a window to the outside. The tube comes here, goes down through a hole in the desk, and then under the desk goes outside. But I needed something horizontal, so I ended up having to build my own because almost everything is vertical. But I was glad I did because I thought it through for a long time, and you know, I think I like mine better for what I want than the commercial ones because of the things I told you, the clear tube and the feeding area where you could see. And mine has that screen bottom board, so I can constantly monitor whatever's dropping. I see lots of pollen pellets drop as you would see in the other ones. I see lots of wax scales. Very rarely I'll see a mite. But yeah, so that's the challenge of an observation hive is it's a small hive. So it's very robust. It's very robust. In the spring, I have to take frames of brood out or they swarm. But on the other hand, swarming is a really cool thing to watch from the inside. So
you're having to split it constantly and then just keep putting in.
I don't split. Yeah, I just take a frame out and I put it in one of my other hives. The other thing about if you have an observation hive, you pretty much have to have other full field hives as resource hives because they can't store enough honey. So especially in fall, I try to give them like at least 2 full frames of capped honey from another hive, and they'll go through that pretty quick too, but just hope they make it through. Even indoors, they don't like to take any syrup in the winter. It just sits there. Even when their own honey is almost gone, they don't seem to track it at all, anecdotally. Oh, sorry. So they aren't in a tight cluster, but they're in a loose cluster. They greatly reduce their activity. They most of the time, just kind of hang in place. How they what? Oh, yeah, they don't make that tight of a cluster. they hang close, but yeah, and a lot of and people say, oh, you don't want to heat your outside hive because there'll be lots of activity and they'll eat through their honey. And again, anecdotally, I don't see that at all. I see them really slow down. They stop. They know what's going on outside. And in the winter, they'll take a lot of trips. They'll send scouts, I guess, down the tube that hightail it back once they hit the cold air. I've never seen it, but because it's so small, they rarely raise drones. I think this year was the first year that I actually saw many drones. But the other thing is, I was really excited about um, seeing the queen cells and watching that develop, but it's really hard to see them, to be honest. I don't always know when I have them because they're covered up. But when they did swarm, and then there were fewer bees, then I could see the capped queen cells, and I was so excited because I'm gonna watch the queen come out and go kill the other ones, right? And one day, I thought that would be cool, and I was gonna try to film it, and I did see the virgin queen run around, and I was so excited, she's running right towards, I think it was even piping, a queen still in her cell, and then the other bees chased her away. The workers didn't let her get near it. So then she ran around wall to the whole other side where there was another queen cell, and they wouldn't let her touch that one either. I couldn't figure it out for a while, but it's because the workers wanted to have an after swarm. So they were saving their queen for that. Is my guess. Yes. That's a really good question. And yep, I can only remember one question at a time, but go ahead.
In their natural formation, they're kind of stacked, but in this way, they're not next to each other. So being that this is not their natural formation, how long would one last? I know that you're kind of supplementing, taking them in and out, but
The first one I had the queen for 3 years. Yeah, continuously. That includes one capture. I think they swarmed once, and I captured her and put her back. But she lived 3 years, and it was great. Yeah. So the light question, that was something that I was told also. Oh, you got to cover it up most of the time, or at night, or during the day, or keep insulation on it, or whatever. They don't care. They don't have any. They don't seem to be aware at all of the light. And even though I tried to place it where it wouldn't be in direct sunlight, sometimes, some parts of the year, some parts of the day, it'll come in from the windows over here and shine really bright on there. They don't care. It didn't seem to overheat them either. But I wouldn't place it on purpose in full sunlight, but that little area, only for the overheating part. But I have lights underneath these cabinets, and I'll leave them on 24/7, so they're in bright light. And as far as being natural, that was another decision that I made. So how thick to make it? How many frames thick? And these are single frames, so it's 4 total instead of 8, or 3 deep or whatever. And the reason I decided that is because if I'm going to have an observation hive, I want to see the queen. So I have with this setup, I have 50-50 chance she's on the other side or she's on this side. If I had it stacked, then whatever those odds are, then I have 1 out of 4 chance of being able to see her. One frustration I had with building my own is I can lift this up and I can turn it, but it's not very easy. I spent months trying to figure out how to put like a pole here So this thing could swing out, and I could, if I had somebody visiting and the queen was on the other side, you know, you really want to show them your queen. Um, but it became an engineering puzzle that I never figured out because it's cantilevered out so far that there would be so much pressure on that to hold it. But I guess that's reason number 12 is when you have people over, it's amazing. When we have dinner parties or whatever, you become docent number one for sure. Everyone loves it. I'm sorry? Yeah, I tried to make it as light as possible, so it's maybe it's not heavier than a single 8-frame medium box, all told. It's probably like a little over a nuke in weight. I don't know what it is. It's a little awkward to carry because I built in handles here and here, so I carry it like that. But that's a really good question. So some of the commercial ones or the bigger ones, I mean, this one has handles built in, and that's like a 2-person job, and so is this. And I'll say another thing about this one. Although any observation hive is better than no observation hive, I wouldn't want this one because can't even see the feeder, right? It's on top. Same with that one. That's our clubs that we have at a nature center. The feeder's up there. No one can see it. And the entranceway is there, so it's just bees are there. What are they doing? How do they get in and out? Can't see them coming. And then this one, why would you cover any of it? You can't see what's going on there. So if your queen's up there, which she does like to hang out on tops of frames, why not have it in glass?
When you take it outside, how do you keep them from going? Like, how do you close off that tube so you're not getting bees in the house?
Yeah, that was my other. I had all these clever things. I was going to the plumbing, like valve and turn it and whatever, and I ended up. So I just take a piece of paper towel and I pull it out and I stuff paper towel into each end and that's it. Just plug it up with paper towel, which has been really great except for the one time when I lifted it up and carried it out on my deck to take care of it and didn't realize that I knocked the paper towel out of the incoming tube and all the field bees came back while I was gone, and it was a lot of bees in my house. Yes.
What's the magnification of the macro photos? If you consider 1x as sort of the start of macro,
Oh, that's a good question. I don't even have a guess. I'm sorry. It's something I should know, but didn't think to write it down, or maybe Sam would know. I don't know. Sorry. I think that the microscope lens part was 10x, I'm pretty sure, and then it was on top of a macro, so something 10 or greater.
how often do you work the hive?
So I don't really work it as much as I do the outside hives as often because I can see everything that's going on, so I don't have to open it. And I pretty much leave them alone if I see that they have honey. And so really the critical parts are the spring buildup, because I need to remove the frames of brood because it gets really crowded, and then making sure they have enough stored honey to last through the winter, because I can't open it in the winter. Can't take it outside. And they, like I said, they won't take down the syrup fast enough to recover. But luckily it's always worked out. Yes.
I had an observation hive years ago.
Oh, good.
So that you can actually take honey out. You can close different doors, and you can actually
Take frames out.
harvest honey on the top of it. It was pretty interesting.
That I want to see pictures of that.
One time he wanted to borrow the hive to bring to a show where he was demonstrating this, and he lived within about a mile of where my hive was, and so we took it out, and we put the tube like your tube down on the windowsill like that, and it was like, and it helped there, and then he took the hive away and went back to his place and put it on his roof until he was ready for his show. And all the bees came back the next day. They were all outside my window and down the tube. Oh, and it was just like, oh, so he had to bring that
Packed in there.
back. He had to reconnect the rooms of the bees. And it was just really
Yeah, yeah.
so I have to be careful of that. And the other thing that was really wonderful was that when there were queen cells, you could hear them
Piping.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Loudly. Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, when they get excited, you can hear them in other parts of my house. But not just the queens, but just the buzz. And I'm like, wait, is the refrigerator running loud or what? What's going on? 'Cause it's right next to the refrigerator. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
So, kind of along with the question of the fact that they're in light all the time, normally, obviously they're in the beehive, it's dark, and if anything is going to kind of go out to the beehive and do something at night, of course, the last thing you want to do is shine a light on them because you're never dark for the bees. But have you ever tried to put them under like a red light and see if their activity changes? Because, nighttime beekeeping you can do under a red light and not get stung and not be attracted. I wonder how that is inside because they're acclimated to all this daylight 24 hours a day, essentially.
I don't know. That would be very interesting to try to see if I could notice any difference. But for my setup, it would be pretty hard because it's in the kitchen, and I would have to like build a shed around it or something to.
Like how you have the curtain or rug or
Yeah.
turn it up and then put the red light on and then you can see it and control it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an idea to try to. Yeah. Now I'm curious. Yes.
I just want to say something about the light of the bees. I was in India once, and they in a big old library, huge library. In every window, bees made a hive, and it was about 3 foot long, and they made their own comb. They're very organic, organic. And it was all out in the daylight, and there were every window of the library had these bee frames in it, and it was in the daylight. So maybe we have this wrong idea that bees have to be only
Yeah.
in darkness.
Different species, but yeah, I agree with you. Huh? They were honeybees, but maybe not European honeybees. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, I had one spring, because I organized all the swarm retrievals for our county, and so I am in the first point of contact, and someone said, oh, I've got this beehive that fell out of the tree, and how many times has it been wasps, right? And I'm like, no, bees don't build their hives out in the open, and that must be wasps and whatever. But he sent me pictures, and it sure was. So they just didn't find a home in time, and they started building a lot of comb out under a branch. So bees do anything, I guess. I mean, animals. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Oh, I would just say, put in the plug that, yeah, I brought some books to sell. If you're interested, you can also buy it on Amazon. It's 20% off tonight. So I can take cash or actually have a credit card reader. Only, don't feel, just if you want to see some of the pictures.
Thank you.
So everybody, just a reminder, so next month we have our meeting on the first Wednesday. We're gonna have Major Bransel again. You guys, most likely remember him from before. He brings a lot of stuff and he's gonna be on tips and tricks this time for swarm catching. So it's gonna be really fun. He's gonna have a whole bunch of different things, equipment, learning stuff. So if you have any interest in that, he's always really fun and really hands-on. And like we talked about in the very beginning, we need volunteers. So if anybody is interested in any of the positions or wants a refresher on it, come find me, and I can go over all that with you. So thank you so much, you guys.